Hello, positively Presto people. Mr. Jones here in slightly wintry top today. Festive greetings. This beautiful person here is Sky. Hello, Sky.
That's me. Hello.
Miss Sky Underwood is we're very fortunate to have her as a vocal tutor at Presto Music School. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Always,
professional.
always, yeah. And we thought we'd take a moment to chat about teaching and progress of teachers as well. I've been teaching now for about 5,000 years, and Sky has become one of the most valued. This isn't one of those blow smoke interviews. We're not doing that. Let's be very, very real. The reason that we're having this interview is because of the growth as a teacher. You have absolutely flown in your teaching career in such a short space of time.
It has been. It's felt like a long time, but it's been quick.
Well, after COVID, I mean, we're recording this in December 24, and so it can only be a few 3 years.
It's 2 years
Thereabouts.
I started in Feb 22.
And the growth that Sky has experienced, both from a teaching perspective, from a student perspective, from a responsibility perspective. Blimey. So if ever there was a really good example of somebody who we could interview to talk about teacher training, growth, applying yourself, throwing yourself into things, this is the young lady that we would like to speak to on that thing. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Okay, so question one, Sky. May I ask, what do you feel as though your own personal biggest growth element is as a result of the training that we went through right at the beginning? Where's the biggest jump for you?
I think confidence is a main one, and not just in terms of teaching. I think personal confidence, when you sort of go through something that you're not used to, or you overcome certain challenges, it sort of instills a self-belief that I might not have had before. And even though I've always been quite a confident person, I like to throw myself into things, I tended to doubt myself. And I think the more times I've had a challenge in class, or I've had a student achieve something, it sort of reaffirms my own ability, and I feel like I can carry myself a little bit more confidently on the day-to-day. And I think that's been quite interesting to see. And I think my students also, gaining that rapport with them and everything, it's all sort of reinforcing each other. And
Would you agree with the idea that your confidence, and yes, you specifically, but teachers in general, providing that they follow the teacher training, providing that they throw themselves into things, providing that they listen and apply the training theory and that kind of stuff, would you agree that confidence becomes exponential in the first few days? It's a scary thing, but it does tend to build. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. I think at the beginning it's supernatural to be nervous. I mean, if it's something that you're not very experienced with, or that you don't have many expectations of, you're going to question and sort of think, what's this going to be like? And there is an element of, you do have to just jump in the deep end, but I think the level of support I had and the encouragement, that it was a really nice balance between, you just got to get in and do it. I had a lot of opportunity to try in a safe environment, where if I made a mistake, whether it was at the start of my teaching, where I'd have you in class to sort of put me in the right direction or help me articulate what I wanted to articulate, but then also getting the responsibility, because I think it's something that you step up to. If you constantly have a safety net, you're never gonna go as far as you can go. And so I think it was a really nice balance of, we've got you, but you've got you've got you as well.
I think one of the things that you did so very well is that you immediately employed the modelling strategies that we use in the teacher training, which is basically we will model a version of best practice for you to then echo. But the way that you did it was, as we always say, you can still be yourself. You don't need to be me.
Yeah, no one could be you, David.
Lord knows we don't need a. We don't want that.
I don't think I could if I tried.
We don't want that in the world. Blimey. You can still be yourself, but you can model either phrasing or approaches. I think one of the things that you did really well also in the early days, so the new version of the teacher training system actually starts with, as we delve into pedagogy and how to actually study teaching in the first place, the first thing we actually look at is learning styles. One of the first things we look at is learning styles. And that is something that I thought you did really, really well, in the way that you listened and watched and paid attention to your students. This assessment-led approach that we always talk about in the Presto teacher training, we teach by assessing the needs of the individual. Tell me something about your thoughts on that.
I mean, to me it's very important because I have ADHD, as many of us do, many creative people do, and I think and I think my learning styles weren't met a lot of the time when I was growing up, and it made me struggle at school, and it made me drop certain instruments. Like when I was very young, I had a piano teacher who she took me a long way, but I ended up quitting and dropping it early. I think I was 6 and I got my grade 2. So what she was doing was good, but I hated it, and it was like 100 scales a day, and it was very strict, and it was very classical style of training that didn't resonate with me. And so I, from personal experience, have a lot of value in, I want my students to feel seen and understood and heard. And while some students will want me to, for example, if we're in class, sing it with them so that they've got the confidence to try it themselves, or some people want to hear an example and they do it. Some of them just need to do it so many times that they can feel it within themselves. Some people need me to draw diagrams, and I think that's also something that I love about teaching, is as you're not only building like a relationship and rapport with your students, you're getting to know their learning style. It feels like a fun challenge for me. It's like the more I learn with somebody, the more I'm learning from them, and then it's sort of like the learning becomes sort of like exponential, in that I get to know them, they get to know me, and it becomes more efficient. And that's a fun little puzzle for me to figure out with every new student I get.
I think it's one of the most rewarding parts of teaching, where you run into difficulties where somebody doesn't understand something. And this is why I personally have loved in the past when a student will say, I'm sorry, I don't understand that. I'm buzzing as a result, because I'm thinking, awesome.
Let's go.
You've given me something to fix. And also, I know exactly what you mean, in so much that I learn more about me still all the time, in the fact that the thought process is almost, this is fantastic, you've just asked me a question, so therefore you don't understand this thing that we've done. I've just given you the answer and the explanation, and you don't understand that, so therefore it's now down to us as educators to try and fix that. You have done that extremely well in the past, especially in group situations. What has been an example of a challenging situation that you've overcome through adapting your training to come up with something on a different learning style to help the individual?
I think sometimes with groups it can be challenging, but again equally rewarding, because you have got different students who will inevitably learn in different ways, and you have the same 45 minutes, hour, whatever, with these group of different students. And so I think it's interesting, the dynamic between switching in myself, because again it's like I have to get in, okay, this is a visual person, I'm visual mode, I'm explaining, talking with my hands, drawing, to then go to the next student and it's like, okay, now I'm demonstrating this. And so I think that's something that I have to be very mindful of, and it can be quite exhausting by the end of the day, because you're so switched on for a certain amount of time, because a lot of jobs you'll do 7-8 hour day, but you're sort of in normal, like you switch off, you're in autopilot for a lot of it. There's no real such thing as autopilot when you're teaching, because you've got to be ready for any question, you've got to be aware and visualising. I think with singing specifically, it's quite holistic within the person, because it's also not just technique and ability and understanding, it's also their physicality, they're feeling and experiencing it, and you're not inside their body, you've got to sort of figure that out with each person. And I think that is something that again comes with getting to know the student. The more students you teach, the more you come across, and the faster you can get that. So that gets a bit challenging, but again, it's something that I love. It's a nice tired, you know, when you get at the end of the day and you're just like, you feel like you've done something and achieved something. So it's not just like, oh, that was horrible. It's nice.
I think it keeps you on your toes when, for example, somebody asks a question and the answer isn't clarifying what you've said. It's hearing what they asked.
Yes. Yeah.
I think there's two different things.
Definitely.
I think somebody asking a question they're not saying I don't understand. What they're saying is the information you've given me doesn't sit with me. Yeah.
It's like I can understand the concept of what you're trying to give me, but it's not working for me. I can see it, but I'm not feeling it. Yeah. So again, I find it quite fun. I think quite outside the box in general, and again, it feels like a game to me. It's like, I'll explain it this way. I'll explain it this way, and any of my students know, if you guys are watching this, I can come up with the strangest analogies. We love an analogy in my classes. We've got some Play-Doh ones. We've got some. It's fun. There's a lot of strange analogies, because, like I say, I'm a visual person, and what I'm seeing in my mind, and then when I'm trying to articulate it to my students, some of them get it, and some of them I was like, okay, I've got to be a bit more normal with my explanation of this one. But yeah, it's good.
But that kind of thing, your life, your energy, your positivity, your creativity, that exudes in classes as well. Perfect example of the fact that we go through rigorous training, but still be yourself. Yeah. Because that's who the students fall in love with.
Yeah, it's also the whole thing of, you know, you want to be yourself and have fun, and again you learn the boundaries of each student. Some of them will find it hilarious, some of them will be like, can you reel it in a little bit? And it's again like reading that and knowing. And I think that was something that was taught quite well in the beginning of my teaching, was recognizing and being people focused and not just content focused, because again, that's what's made the difference between other teachers that I've experienced myself as a student. The ones I resonated with were focused on who I was and taught based on that, rather than this is a regime that I'm going to stick to. So it's very fluid, I think. Stick
to the curriculum as a ladder and framework to move around and within, as opposed to rigidly. Yeah, definitely. When we first started your training, I think one of the very first early concepts we look at is SEDPOF, SEDPOF, set the scene, explain the situation, demonstrate it, they perform, you observe, and everybody feeds back. It's something that we have been using as a framework for the lessons at Presto for a long time. And the S and the E, they set the scene and the explain, sometimes we've seen teachers just bypass that completely, and what they do is they demonstrate the new thing, and so they're going straight to the D, demonstrate, and then they perform. The problem with that is we've not set the scene, and sometimes we have to contextualize, because otherwise we just drop this information in. Well, I'm still thinking about sausage and mash, because that's what I've just had for tea. So I think that setting the scene and putting some contextualization in there is really important. Is contextualization a real word?
Potentially,
sounds like a long version of a real word. Okay, in your early days, when you first started teaching, there were obviously key factors that we observed you leap along with in your progress. But is there anything? Are there 2 or 3 factors that you remember in your training that you then were able to employ, and you felt the biggest growth then?
I think some of it was specific to the training, but some of it was also what I saw demonstrated in the other Presto teachers and yourself specifically. Is again not as much to do with the academic side of teaching, and it's something that's quite intrinsic to people. I think everybody has it. You've just got to be able to tap into it, and I think it's the energy you bring to class. And when the students feel like you want to be there, they want to be there, and I think you can feed off it. It's something that I feel quite a lot because I teach the primary school curriculum, Presto's curriculum as well. And when you walk into a classroom, you can't, if you're tired or you've had a bad morning, you got stuck in traffic and didn't have time for coffee or whatever, and you walk in the class and you're not feeling it, they can feel that, and that is something that you learn from experience. You have a day, and if you don't show up as your best self, you can get eaten alive a little bit. And that's something that you kind of learn when you become a teacher. You're stepping into that mind, and now you're representing yourself. And I think I've also kind of seen the impact that you can have and the gravity of it on a child's musical development if you don't show up as your best self, and obviously nobody's perfect. You're gonna have a day where you're wobbly, but that's a whole different thing. But it can really affect the child's future in music, and if you're not setting a good example, then I think that would be a shame for them to then lose what their potential is. And I think that's something that I try and remind myself of, as like, it might be any day to me, but this 1 hour a week for this kid could be the highlight of their week.
Yep. And
even if it's my everyday, I still need to have the same energy and care and attention, so it doesn't become monotonous, I suppose. But that's been something that I saw very well represented by Presto, is that I care so much for every student, no matter the day, really.
And it's got to be fun, and your students come buzzing out of class, so clearly they're having fun.
Well,
but
so
also,
do I.
Yeah. But also you listen to the quality of the students that you produce, Sky, and it's just fantastic. Phenomenal, in fact. I remember a particular class of yours where I'd come to observe one of your classes. Bearing in mind, you must teach something like 450 students a week now. Like there or thereabouts. Yeah. A lot of students, and you think, well, how are we possibly going to teach 450 students a week and maintain the quality? But you listen to the performance of your students, and they're all on the button. They all know exactly what they know what they do. Yeah. They do. We're putting it here. We're putting it on camera. It's formal. We're saying it. Your singing students are superb.
They are.
Look at my smiley face.
So good. Honestly, I get I get a bit emotional sometimes. Like at the Presto Music course we did. Was it, how long ago? Was it a week ago? 2 weeks ago? Yeah. I was emotional the whole time, and when we were giving out the awards, and I was hearing you describe what I'd mentioned about my students who are winning those awards, I did feel really proud, and not just my own input. It was the work and their dedication as well, and I think I take a lot of pride in my students. They know I'll be strict with them, but I think it's important.
I popped into one of Sky's classes about 3 or 4 weeks before the event itself, and the quality was superb, but the difference between the rehearsal 3 or 4 weeks before and the end result shows the speed of progress of the students, and that's down to you listening. In my humble opinion, I think that's down to you as a teacher listening to them. So again, assessment-led learning, as we cover in the teacher training, and you're hearing the results of your main input so far, and then you're truly adapting the next piece of information to them, so that you're getting the very, very best out of them. And boy, did you do that.
Thank you. We worked very hard. It was also nice getting to collaborate with them, because the specific group you're talking about are advanced students, and I think it's also really important to give them the lead sometimes. And even though I'm the sort of expert in the situation, I am very details focused. I'm also, I care how they feel about their part, or I'm struggling with this bit, could we adapt that, or could we, sometimes my job is to know whether to say, yeah, let's try it if that's how you're feeling, or for me to say, you know, you can step it up. Don't like go for it, you know, to push them and encourage them rather than let them cop out, you know.
Oh,
I think
definitely,
that's the balance, and that I like to have the sort of symbiosis of I can help them along, but it's also very led by them. And I think it's also a teacher's job to assess whether a student is capable of that, if they need more guidance, you know, when they're starting out. But once they get to a point where they know what you expect of them, you know, some of my students, I can just stop the music and say, what did you do? What am I going to say? And they know exactly what I'm going to say, and they go, oh, I did this. And I think, again, that's what's a really beautiful thing about your sort of teacher-student relationship. And again, the more you care, the more you pay attention, the better results you'll get. So
Definitely.
It's all about those little 1% that we like. If you can adapt a little tiny thing over a lot, it'll make a really big overall impact.
One of the things that we talk about in the teacher training is where we try and reverse that role, where we say, if I, the student, had just done that version and you were the teacher, what would you say to me? How would you fix that? Exactly as you say, Sky, you know, what am I going to say to you? How are you going to fix this yourself? And in the past, we had we should stick it in the FAQs. Somebody once asked the question, does that not put me out of a job? If we're teaching the student how to be able to teach themselves, and you think, no, or you're just getting an exponential improvement because the student is constantly thinking, this would be even better if.
I think my goal as well is, one of my old teachers did this very well, my old singing teachers. And still to this day, I hear her voice in my head. Like, if I'm singing something, I'm like, what would Alison say?
Yeah.
Or I know what she'd be saying. And that's kind of my goal, is that I want my students to, I'm giving them the input and the information, but they have to apply it at home. You know, at the end of the day, with any instrument, with any skill, it's not the 45 minutes, hour and a half lessons that you have with your teacher. It's what you do away from that really creates the progress. 45 minutes a week, you know, won't necessarily give you the super fast progress. Of course you'll progress, but the more you apply on your own is, you know, the more you'll get better. But you also need to remember what you've said in class and apply that. And so my goal is to instill enough of that their self-teaching is beneficial at the same time.
That motivation and inspiration, though, to practice is most definitely coming from you, the teacher, though. Especially practicing in the way that you need them to practice. Them doing stuff is one thing. Them practicing the exact stuff that you've asked them to is key. What would you say to any novice teachers wanting to push themselves forward, or anybody considering taking on the Presto Music Teacher training?
In a completely unbiased way, just say yes. I think that's how I started. You know, as you said, I didn't interview for a teaching role when I came here, but I think a philosophy that I have personally is just say yes and figure it out later. And I think teaching can be one of the things. While you do need a background of, you know, pedagogy and understanding, you're never going to put you guys in a situation that you're unprepared for. But I think you do need to have that jump out and just do it, because until you do it, you're not going to know what it's like, and if you don't know what it's like, you're not going to do it. And so you just sort of have to have that freedom and confidence in yourself to go with the flow. And I think, again, that's what a lot of teaching is, and it's trust. It's a lot of self-trust, I think, is what you need, in trusting yourself and your abilities. And like I say, everybody has it, you've just got to tap into it. And I think it comes with a sort of blind leap of faith eventually, and once you've got those fundamentals, the blind leap of faith becomes a bit less blind, really. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but it's that sort of balance between trusting yourself but knowing you've got the backup and the support at the same time.
Definitely, we have that much faith and confidence in you now that, and secrets will be revealed coming up, but but there's a new project that we're very keen on working, not only with Sky as a Presto teacher, but also somebody who we want to collaborate with on projects. And those kind of things wouldn't be possible without you putting yourself forward for the training and throwing yourself into it and just getting on with it and doing it. And I think sometimes some people think, well, I won't do it this time. I'll wait until the time's right. When is the time right? If you
Life's too short.
If you need the training to do the thing, then do it now, so that in a year's time, you're reaping the benefits.
Yeah.
Sky, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
And we wish you all the success in the world for your continuing growth as an awesome music teacher.
Thank you.
See you next time.